Hello everyone, this is Don Wynn with BlueFirePoker.com. Today I'm going to continue the series that I've kind of been working on throughout the last month or two, and that's kind of moving up the stakes both in PLO and No Limit. It's live commentary today, so I'm not going to be pausing at all. So um, I'm going to try to keep it to about 3 tables, and it's kind of weird because when I sat down in the lobby, uh, there were like no open tables. It was, I think, like 8 tables, all with wait lists, and then me trying to start games. So I'm going to try to start some games here, try to get a couple more going, and the action going. Uh, Seems like a pretty easy bet here with kings and the queen high flush draw. If I just had kings, I'd probably still be betting there. Mainly because my hand doesn't improve. Let me bring that back up. Um, my hand doesn't improve often enough on the turn to, I think, justify checking it back in position. Had I had king, king, queen three with king high diamonds, I'd be more inclined, I think, to check it back and realize more of my equity and pick up some backdoor flush draws. So that should be a pretty important consideration, I think, in when you decide to check certain hands back. The more backdoor outs you have, um, the more often I think you should be checking back if your hand can't withstand a check raise. Pretty easy 3-bet here with great aces and pretty happy about it. Lit Kev so far, I think I stacked him like 3 or 4 hands ago where he had limped mini ugly raised to 450 and I 3-bet with um, king 6 7 jack with clubs, and I won't slow roll him here, but um, I flop. It was a 2 3 4 flop, and then he just got it in with ace deuce. So frankly, pretty bad there. Uh, from his position with the bottom end of the straight, I think it's a lot better to let me c bet because I'm going to have a lot of air. It's a pre-flop through better, and on that type of lockdown board, he's going to want to get that extra c bet out of me when I do have air. So definitely didn't like his line. And let's look at how he played this hand. Let me close one of these tables because it looks like another one opened up. His play is, I guess, somewhat reasonable, considering how often he's been getting um, isolated and then me through betting so far. I mean, it's fine to get kings in, I guess, pre-flop, and once that flop comes down, I'd probably be inclined to check call or check fold and not be too happy about getting it in. 8 5 4 6 looks pretty good with the high gap. It's a lot worse because my run or yeah my wraps will often be to like not nuts. It's a lot better to have your gap lower. So if like a 5 7 6 4 is significantly better than 5 8 4 6, mainly based on combos of flops that you have net outs on. So, but I mean, I think it's just fine for a call. Okay, so let Kev continues to limp, and I'm just gonna isolate him and hopefully go heads up a lot with him, or heads up with him a lot because he seems to be pretty weak and makes a lot of mistakes post flop. So I'll be pretty happy about it. And twice now he's let out with relatively strong hands. So on this type board, I think he's gonna be check folding a lot, but definitely want to build it in case he wants to call with a wrap like 8 9 6, 8 9 jack, or just bear 8 9 and maybe overplay queens, which he's been inclined to do. Okay, so when I first started moving up the stakes, I think I started at 100 PLO and am now playing 510 and occasionally taking shots at 1020. I guess I played a little bit of 50 PLO when I first starting out. 50 is totally about making the nuts a lot, or making other people fold when they don't have the nuts. And it's usually multi-way, which is why it's like that. But at 100, I think is when you start seeing some semi-competent players, not many, but some regs that will play a tight, aggressive game and um, play relatively well. I'm not quite sure, but back I don't know a year ago now when I was moving up on PLO, uh, a majority of people's three betting ranges were ace ace XX heavy, and that changes a bit at like 200. So we'll see if that still holds true, or if people are starting to three bet non aces hands like I don't know Jack 9 10 8, etc. etc. Double suited hand here. It's not the greatest hand, but I'm not going to be folding to too many three bets when I open under the gun, and tough flop to play. So I have middle pair, two backdoor draws, and two pair outs, and now I'm just going to lead and probably lead again. If my assumption was correct, and people did mainly three bet ace ace XX heavy hands, I think I'll be able to get one pair to fold by the river a bunch. So don't like firing one on the turn. I think I think I'll fold quite a bit by the river here if he just has a single pair of aces. If he does have like ace ace jack 7, ace ace jack 4, he might call with that hand, although it's fairly similar. That's something you certainly want to do too. I think a lot of people fire one barrel in my spot there on the turn and then kind of give up on the river and say, he's never folding. But when we don't know like greatly that his range is aces heavy, but if we make that assumption, it's going to be really hard for him to make a one pair call down in that spot. So I think there's quite a bit of bluff equity there. On the top right, I check raise flop. Did I? I think I did. 36. I'll have to look at it again because haven't done a live commentary in a while. If I did, the main flop draw got there, so I think he should be folding like any 8-9 XX hand, and he goes ahead and does that. Like when I check raise this flop, let's see if I did. I'm super curious now. Yeah, I did. When I check raise that flop, I have a made hand or a draw. So let's say he's sitting here with um, 8 9 7 6. If I check raise with set of nines, set of eights, he's drawing very slim. If I had the high wrap with 10 jack queen, 10 jack 7, he has no outs against any hand. So when you're thinking about representing a or when to continue on the turn, see how well it fits in with your range there. And since I pretty much can't have much air there, I think I'll be getting a lot of folds. So good spot to continue with my actual hand. Typically, don't like overplaying kings preflop because it does really really bad against a four bet, and even hands like ace queen jack 10 double suited or single suited or rundowns don't have like that great of preflop equity. So I typically like to just flat with most of my king king XX unless they're really wide opener or they're really good kings. If I had like king queen jack double suited, I'm three betting that and very happy about it. On the top right, I occasionally slow play sets and more inclined to do so heads up when you know them making reads is going to be more important or yeah relevant. But in this particular case, we're half stacked, so I mean there's really no reason to. And if I were to slow play set, I'd be a lot more inclined to do it with bottom set where if 8 9 jack or 6 come or any spade, I'm probably not getting stacked by top set. With that stack size, I probably am, but it's a lot better to do it that hand. Okay, so facing a 8, 8 9 10. looks like a triple gutter. I'm not sure. I'll have to look again, but uh, it looked a little bit loose when I raised and 8, 9, 10. Okay, so he had the middle wrap, um, and then the queen. With the flush draw out against a lot of my hands, he just does not have much equity. If I have a flush draw there ever with like a wrap of my own, he's just like dead. So I think he overplayed that quite a bit. Um, Nothing missed here when he continued barreling. If he barreled wraps or was barreling a flush, then I can't beat anything at this point. So I think easy lay down with the single pair. Okay, so he three bet pre and just continuation bet. Uh, some players um, will lay down a single pair of kings or aces here. Some people won't. I actually don't know, so I'm not going to force the action too much and just call and see if turn and hopefully play it pretty well. That's a interesting turn card because if we were deeper, I could call again a lot and like lead any king 10 or 8 in addition to having outs with the flush draw there. But with the two blockers, it gives me like a lot of bluff potential. Now that he barrels that board, um, inclined to just fold with mediocre flush draw in one pair. Okay, so player three bet pre, and there's one pot size bet left. So even though he does have aces here a lot, I don't think he can get away from it. If he did have kings, he might be potting. Hopefully, get someone else to fold because he has blockers too, king queen. But with one pot size bet left, I don't think I can get away from this. And he did have the king king, so that's good. I have the queen blocker. Uh, I think it's very rare that I'm good here on the top left, but this player has been like really, really bad so far. And I mean, I think he shows up with Jack 10 a lot, but he could potentially be value betting like Ace Queen, Ace King, and then maybe miss flush draws. Against like 90% of players, I think I fold here, but with the really good price and the fact that he is pretty bad, I think I have to um, make the crying call. Okay, top right. I think he's been messing around a little bit. This is a spot where I can three bet. I do rep more air that way. And he might play back, but I think when I call a check raise, people like give up a lot on the turn, and I can make a small bet. Rep aces a lot or 4x of slow playing, or was trying to see or not try to get stacks in if I had like a weak kicker. But at this point, I'm just gonna fold when he double barrels. I don't like floating there a lot, but I do it occasionally, especially if I think a player is messing around. The top right hand is just super strong, and I'm pretty happy about it. Since he has shown to like check raise a lot, and probably won't let me get away with this pretty cheaply, I'm just gonna go ahead and check fold here. I don't want to be betting these boards all the time, mainly because people will be fighting back a bunch, and I kind of waste a C bet if he's going to be raising me, and or occasionally get FPS and make some big bluff by the river. And sometimes it's best to just check fold these rivers, especially if they have been playing back a lot. Bottom left, I don't think I'm getting many folds, and 7 hurts me a little bit because I get less boat outs. So I'm gonna try to check and hopefully see a cheap turn. On the top right, it's weird that he checked twice and then bet the river. Kind of seems like he was slow playing a 5 and trying to get me to bet, or I guess he has pocket 2s sometimes. Um, I'm probably gonna fold here because I don't think he's gonna be taking a line like that and be bluffing. Hopefully I make quads. 2 outs to it. Nope. I'm gonna buy in deep on the top right. Oh, still in the nuts, and that's always fun in PLO. Um, and obviously I'm just gonna be betting for value here. I'm probably on the bigger side. With I think my range, I think I want to be betting pretty big here. Um, Mainly because if I do have Jack Jack or 10-10, I'm going to be betting big. So I think it doesn't matter too much because they don't know me, but it'll be super, super exploitable if they figure out that when I bet big on that board, I have blockers, and when I bet like half pot to 2/3, that I have uh, the nuts. So don't want to be too exploitable. 200 BB deep against an aggressive player. Do not want to get into tricky spots um, and 3-bet with bad stack spot ratio. So just flatting with aces there. Continue betting with the second nuts. And at this point, I think deep, I can start setting up the big bluff here. He does pot it, and the other player calls. I think Bad Boy Killa has King Jack a lot or King Queen Jack. Um, so at this point, I'm just probably gonna bet 43 with the two blockers to the nuts, and then jam most rivers. Oh, that didn't work out very well. I guess they both have ace queen, which would be pretty weird because there would be no aces left. But let's see. Huh? He picked up a set. His overcall on the flop is super, super bad. Let me look at that hand again. Yeah, when I check raise with just a 10 high flush draw, um, and he just has a 4 high flush draw, that is just really bad. He is crushed, I think, a majority of the time that goes 3-way. After I will eat you called, he has like nut flush draw a lot, or like I have nut flush draw plus set a lot. So I mean, he has like no outs a lot. So I mean, that was really bad. Uh, and no limit hold'em flush draws are like cool and you can like draw off, but non-nut flush draws multi-way when a lot of action's being put in, it's just not good at all. Okay, so the bad player leads out, and he's been potting his like relatively strong hands. So twice he's pot out. Once he had bottom end of straight. The other time he had. The other time he had dry kings. So I'm inclined to think he has a draw here a lot. Um, so not worried about kings too often. Now I'm just gonna pot. The reason I want to pot here is basically if I bet like 80 or I guess he got there. Yeah, he got there. Basically, if I'm betting 80 or 75, it just allows him to call pretty cheap. And since I'm never folding, don't want to make that mistake where I allow him the option of calling for cheap or going all in. Um, so just pot it myself. Ace 10, Queen 7. His play was fine, I think. Um, yeah, his play was super standard. He could have, if I didn't pot the turn too, he could have like bluffed and jammed on every diamond river, and I probably would have had to fold. So his play was very good there. When I will eat you check calls on this board. I think he has like kings a lot, queens a lot, and maybe even aces. Um, so I'm gonna start betting, and if he has a better flush draw, I'd really like him to fold out. And he snap calls me. Do I want to fire three and get him to fold a dry overpair, or do I have a reasonable enough showdown value against like ace king 10-9 with diamond draw? And I'm just gonna give up. Yeah, I could have bluffed that hand out. That was like the type of hand that if I did bet, I was trying to bluff out because I don't think he calls so quickly with queens plus, unless there are queens plus with a diamond or heart draw. And I'm not sure if those would have folded the river. The hands I was debating on were like flush draws that had a slightly better pair than mine, and I decided to give up. Although I think that would have worked a lot. With dry overpairs multi-way, I think it's best to just usually bet fold on most boards. Even if he has just like a 3xxx hand or 8xxx hand, we want him folding those out. They have a lot of equity against us. Usually like 10 to 12 outs for the two parent trips, and he can't make, or he shouldn't be making a lot of like weak calls. So folding out a hand that has that much equity is just really really good. And again, I did have 9 backdoor outs that if I did check, and I wouldn't mind it getting checked through. But when it goes multi-way, they're out of position. I think checking is best because I don't think I can be check calling there. Top right, I 3-bet a okay hand. 8-6-9's connected, double suited. It's mainly because we're deep. 200 BB deep, out of position is just going to put a lot of pressure on him. And he's going to have to play really, really fit or fold, I think, a lot on the later streets. So certainly a spot where I like to be 3-betting light the deeper the stacks get. And at this point, I mean, it'd be really good for me to fold out 10-8, 10 deuce, or like Jack 9-7. So I'm going to go ahead and fire through, or continue through. And he just saw me check and give up on the river. So I think I get more credit there when he saw me just not bluff. I haven't done like live audio without the pausing in a while, and I wasn't sure if it was as good as my other videos, so definitely let me know. Because actually, I'm super curious what you guys think, and if you guys like it, I'll continue doing it. If you don't, I won't. So I'm gonna do one more video at 100 PLO, and it will either be live audio or recorded. So let me know what you guys prefer. Cool. Turn the nuts with multiple backdoors. I'm pretty happy about it. Easy value bet on the river. Like, I don't want to let 10-9 get away cheap because he's not value betting that, so there's no reason to check call. If he has 8-6, I don't want to let that get away cheap, so certainly just going to value bet my hand. On these type boards, I think betting 16 to 19 with your entire betting range is probably the ideal amount. Don't want to risk too much. Changes slightly if we're all 160 plus deep, but since one player started off, I think 122 deep is probably a good amount because I will have air there a lot. Because when I'm 3-betting there, I'll have 9-8-7-6 a lot, and betting 16 to win 35 gives me a really, really good price and will make it extremely profitable. But if I'm betting 25 or 26 with my range there, I need to get a lot more folds. So since I think they're calling, folding, and raising, frequencies don't change that much based on stack sizes, or I mean bet sizes, I think it's optimal to go small, especially since it's so easy for us to like three barrel and get most of our stacks in by the river. There's really no hurry to get all the money in as fast as possible. So I'm kind of mindlessly c betting on a lot of tables so far, mainly because it's a little bit difficult to talk and play at the same time. But everyone's check raising me, so I have to make a lot of folds. Could bet and fold out like random pairs. That would be good and prevent myself from getting bluffed on the turn. But I mean, it's an okay hand to check back, and I don't want to be betting this flop at 100% frequency because it allows people to check raise me so easily. So occasionally, just checking it back and taking a showdown will be reasonable. Um, okay, so I get three bet, and now I'm in a fairly awkward position. I have backdoor or clubs, the weak flush draw, and backdoor gutter. So I'm not folding. That's for sure. Don't want to get it in because if he has a hand like King King XX with hearts or Ace Ace XX with hearts, Queen Queen XX with hearts, I am crushed and do not want to get all my money in with about 25% equity. So I think check calling or check folding is the best. And with this particular hand, especially with the backdoor and nut clubs, check calling is probably the best way to play this hand. Uh, if I had a slightly better flush draw, I might be calling, but since I think a lot of his raising range will be nut flush draws, king high flush draws with a pair, that I'm just crushed against those, so just going to give it up here. And he continues betting on the bottom right. Um, Now that I've made my hand, I'm not like super thrilled about it, but I don't think at 100 they barrel these boards that often without a flush. But I mean, at slightly higher stakes, people will be barreling there with one pair like kings and taking a showdown a lot, or with like total error with like nut flush blockers. At 100 PLO, I'd be more inclined to think that um, players would be semi-polarized on the turn to like flush or nut flush blocker, but he did make a double barrel there, and I actually think it's pretty good. When I check call twice there, I think my range is a lot of times a flush, so and I could very easily have the nut flush myself. It's not a bad spot to give up on the river. Although the double barrel will work a lot, because if I somehow had 6 deuce or 10 jack 9 7, probably going to have to fold that turn. And I think his bet's going to show a profit, so well played. With the backdoor flush draw and nut gutter with the ace, I think it's pretty standard call here. I see no reason betting really, aside from charging flush draws. I have the nut ace. If he doesn't have ace king, so rather just take it to showdown. And now at this point, when I call the flop and check back turn, I think a lot of my range is a flush draw, or should appear to him to be a flush draw. So if he bets into me, I think it's going to be like pretty strong. So I'm going to go ahead and just fold my ace queen here, because I think a lot of times it looks like I have a flush, and he's betting into me anyway. I almost forgot to make this video. Actually, I played the first WSOP tournament I planned on playing, and I got there at noon and was home by 3. So had extra time and thought I had a free day and was just gonna hang around and do whatever I wanted. But I had a video, so here I am. Didn't go very well in the WSOP, as you probably imagine from me playing only 3 hours of it. But I lost one flip and 160-40, and my turn two pair ran into a turn getter. So so it goes. Hopefully for the rest of the series, it will work a little bit better. Okay, three-way here to flop on 466. This is again a spot where sometimes I give up because people do check raise here a lot, but I think taking a less than half pot stab is going to show pretty huge profit. I mean, I only need them folding like third of the time or something like that. So I think I certainly get enough folds. I could have considered barreling if one player calls, because a lot of times I think they're calling with a dry overpair. But now that two players call, I don't think I'm quite going to get enough folds. Um, Big Monk should be relatively strong overcalling when D Domination calls. He should have at minimum 578, 573, and usually 6x. So I'm just going to give up against that strong range. And D Domination can also certainly have 6x. So not a spot where I want to continue barreling into, um, I think, two strong ranges. Again, with the ace ace 10 deuce, dry over pairs, I think play best by bet folding. And this is a spot where I put a lot of pressure on Money Ben because he has a short stack behind that um, could very easily like jam, and he puts in Money Dead a lot of the time. Now he leads into me. I guess I call. It feels like he's inducing or blocking with a weak flush a lot. Um, Although he could potentially have. It's not a good turn for me. On the top left, I'm gonna have to fold. But I mean, he could potentially have um, 10-4, King 10, King 4, all of which are blocking. And although I think his range is probably flush heavy, and even Jack Queen go out there now, the price is too cheap, and feels like he could be blocking with a two pair hand, not wanting to face a big bet. So with top set, I think I have to call. Okay, that's really weird. Okay, his pre-flop call is just really bad with 9-9 Queen 10, and his check call with the gutter and weak pairs is also really bad. And um, I mean, he played it decently well. I guess I'm probably folding if I don't have top set by the river to a pretty cheap bet because he reps a flush decently well or two pair decently well. Um, so I mean, it works out for him quite a bit. But I mean, the hand was just really just too weak on both pre-flop and flop to play it that way. And if he wants me to get a fold out of like set of kings or jack queen, he should probably be betting bigger. I think on average against the average 100 PLO player if he does decide to be bluffing. Um, okay, played a hand here. He makes a small raise on the flop on a lockdown board, and it looks like people at 100 PLO are starting to fight back against these a lot, thanks to Mr. Phil Goffond. So I mean, you have to fight back as well, and your range for three betting can't always be 6-7 or 10 Jack Queen or top set because people can mess around just too much. So occasionally you want to be fighting back, and with the nut gut shot and backdoor flush draw, I think it's a reasonable hand to do it with. Okay, so I guess if any huge decisions come up, I will talk about them. However, I guess I should talk about the differences in how the game has evolved since I first started playing it a year ago, and then talk about what my general strategy would be. So I've been getting raised a ton. I've been playing pretty loose, but um, it's not playing as set miney or get top rep and pot. people are fighting back on a lot more boards now with air too. So it's not as straightforward as it once was. Um, I think this is playing similar to how 200 PLO was playing about a year ago. So slight increase in difficulty. But overall, I think I would play pretty loose on average, mainly because uh, a lot of these players are making really, really bad like post flop plays as you've seen so far, and it's really hard to overcome their pre-flop leaks as well. So I mean, once we get our hand reading down and are capable of putting people on ranges, then I think we can play a lot of hands quite profitably because a lot of people have both big pre-flop and post-flop leaks. Once I three bet again because we're deep, 250 deep, it's hard for him to do anything out of position, and the player overcalls. This looks like it hits quite a bit of hands. King XX are a lot of those hands are calling pre-flop, so top sets certainly in both the ranges, as are hands like King Queen Jack 10, Queen Jack 10 9. Just tons of hands hit there. I could potentially see bet on that board if it was heads up. However, three way, I think it's just a spot with where I have no equity, and I'd like to just give up at this point because I don't think firing one is gonna get enough folds to justify c betting that flop. Again, Jack 6 7 with a flush draw hits so many pre-flop calling hands. So, um, especially four way, I just don't want to be betting here very light. I wouldn't mind betting a hand that was likely best. Let's say 6 7 or Jack 6. Um, that didn't have many backdoors, but a hand like this against three other players, I'm just gonna give up. Play pretty straightforward. When I still have top pair and the flush draw, I think it's certainly a spot where I want to continue betting. I think mainly because I have the best hand sum, even though I'm flipping against like Queen 10 9 a lot or 9 3 XX. I don't think I should be betting this river for value because I think his range was draw heavy. One draw beats me. All of the 10 wraps will be folding, all the diamonds will be folding, and if he did have um, Jack 3 or Ace Jack, then, you know, my hand is beat. So I don't see many categories of hands on this board on the river that will be calling. So I think my value bet, if I decided to do so, would be a losing one. Even though occasionally you want to be betting pretty thin, I don't see many worse hands calling, and I don't see any better hands folding. So definitely just think it's a check back. All right, so not the not super excited about the river. I was consider value betting my 8 high flush, and occasionally I do, but I think he has quite a bit of flush draws in his range when he takes that line and isn't folding any better ones, so not much value. On the bottom left, I'm going to start betting, and I'd probably be betting smaller here if we weren't so deep, but I think with the range, betting three-quarter spot is going to be fine. So I'm definitely not worried about being behind ever on the bottom left. And I don't think he has like in high diamonds, so I think he has a small flush or aces up a lot. And this is a spot where I actually will be betting um, a bunch once I do decide to bet turn with my air. So betting big here is fine because I definitely have a bluffing range in this spot. He could have had top set there too. In which case, I think he's calling. But I think for the most part, a majority of people um, bet call or bet get it in with top set there. With these like pretty bad aces, I don't mind folding at all, and it's what I'm gonna do here. Over at 56, pretty aggro and decent as far as I know. And we're gonna be like super deep, and I'm gonna be first to act multi-way, so my hand's not gonna play that well. Basically, just set mining with the ace ace 5-3 with like no redraws. So denomination has been through betting me a bunch, and at 100 BB, I'm pretty happy stacking off with double suited kings here. If he has aces, then hopefully I crack him. Those are bad aces to see. He has one of my draws covered. And nope. It's always fun winning with the backdoor flush draw. Because sometimes they don't know and they think they won anyway, and the pot's not being shipped to them. Yeah, I think he'd been active enough for me to get this hand in. He's been 3-betting me quite a bit, so I mean, not sad about my play at all. On the top right, this is a play where I used to call a lot, and I think it's the leak. A lot of the he could have Jack 10 9 8 that has me crushed, and a lot of when he goes multi-way flush draws, I can get flush over flushed a bit, and I'm out of position. So with hands that look decent, I think it's better off to just fold pre-flop rather than make like really really tough decisions when we're like super deep. Even at 100 BB deep, I fold there, and it's a spot where I used to call. So I'll play one more orbit and then call it good game. It looks like, I don't know, I'm probably down about a buy-in or two, although it could be wrong. Again with dry kings, king 10 is just an awful hand. I think it gets overvalued a lot, especially coming from no limit, where people are always just so excited to see kings. However, like, we just don't have any draws or anything. Basically, again, just set mining. And when you're set mining in PLO, it's not like no limit where you have a set, cool, they have like 5% equity, 10% equity on average. When people are getting it and you have a set, unless you set overset them, they're going to have 30% equity plus. So the equity changes a lot, and it's not nearly as strong as it is in no limit hold'em. So don't overvalue. There's king 10-6 hands. A lot cooler if it's king 10-6 double suited, because you can flop overpair and flush draw, double flush draws by the turn, which are always fun, or top set with redraws and stuff. So those hands are a ton more powerful and should be played. Those dry over ace ace and dry king XX is not a mistake at all to fold pre-flop. Okay, so I'm gonna call it a video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, let me know if you guys want um, live or if you want replays. Both are fine with me and take about the same amount of time. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is Don Wynn with BlueFirePoker.com.